Mayor, at 6:30, may I begin?
Yes, please.
I have a few preliminary matters. This is Zoe Burgess, your city clerk. This meeting is being held with a quorum of City of Westlake Council physically in attendance at the Westlake Council Chambers, 4005 Seminole Pratt Whitney Road. Mayor Roger Manning, Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson, Councilman Patrick Paul, Councilwoman Kara Crump, Councilman John Paul O'Connor are present physically. City Manager Kenneth Castle, City Attorney Pam Booker are physically in attendance. Planning and Zoning Director Nilsa Zacharias is present physically. City Engineer Suzanne Dombrowski and City Clerk Zoe Burgess are attending via communications media technology. Allow me to confirm any presenters are present and available to speak. John Hearing of Cutler Hearing, are you able to hear?
I am able to hear. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Jason Link with the School District of Palm Beach County, are you able to hear?
I'm able to hear.
Thank you. Presenters, prior to your presentation, please state your name for the record. Public comments may be accepted at least 24 hours prior to the meeting utilizing the electronic comment card available on the city's website. Public comments are also permitted at the appropriate time during the meeting. The mayor will call for such during public comments, and you may participate at this time utilizing the system's virtual hand feature and waiting to be acknowledged if you wish to comment. Please note this meeting is being recorded, both voice and video, and to remember your mic may be live. I will mute any microphones that carry any feedback or interruptions. However, you can unmute yourself. Any person in the virtual meeting causing a disruption or being inappropriate will be removed from the meeting. If I may remind those physically in attendance, please project your voice for a clear recording of the meeting. Thank you, Mayor Manning.
Yes, I'd like to call to order the City of Westlake regular City Council meeting, Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 6:32 p.m. We have roll call, please, City Clerk.
Yes, Mayor. Councilman John Paul O'Connor.
Present.
Councilwoman Kara Crump.
Present.
Councilman Patrick Paul.
Here.
Vice Mayor Katrina Long Robinson.
Here.
Mayor Roger Manning.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions, deletions, or modifications for the agenda tonight? Show none. Okay, so we'll move on to the public comment request.
Mayor, I need a motion to
Motion.
approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
No, it's the
I'm sorry,
agenda as presented.
the agenda is presented. My fault.
I'll second the motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. I have a motion made by Vice Mayor Long Robinson, seconded by Councilman O'Connor. Roll call. Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Move on to public comments and requests. This section of the agenda allows for comments from the public to speak on any item not presented on the agenda. Each speaker will be given a total of 2 minutes to comment. A public comment card should be completed and then returned to the city clerk. When you are called to speak, you go to the podium, and prior to the addressing the council, state your name, address, and address for the record.
Mayor, we have received a previous comment card from Kenny Smith. Mr. Smith, if you're on the line, please unmute your device, state your name and your address. Mr. Smith, if you're able to hear us, please state your name and your address.
Hey, sorry about that. Kenny Smith, 16079 Whippoorwill Circle.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I was just curious about the gas pipeline. From my understanding, we're currently getting our gas supply from the tractor trailers on Town Center North. I was wondering when we're going to be tapping into the main pipeline, or if we are. That's all.
Would you like to
Yes.
start now?
Actually, there was an update that I received last week from Florida Public Utilities. Currently, they're waiting on a county permit coming up Seminole Pratt Whitney Road from Harlena down south. They're at that location now. They already have their permits to cross Indian Trails canals, and they're already been pretty much permitted through the area of Westlake through Seminole Improvement District. They've also been with a pressurization station at the southeast corner of Pod H, which is just north of the high school. Their extension lasts until June. If the county will get the permit issued, they're ready to go, and they should make their June date to be off of the tanks. But they do have capacity and have the ability to rotate the tanks as fast as possible, depending on the demand.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Mayor, I received no additional public comment cards. However, if there's anyone in the audience that is present that has submitted a comment card, please go to the podium and state your name and address.
So
We have one.
We have one.
Please state your name and address.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, all. My name is Carlos Aldena. I am a first-time home buyer. We just did our contract a week and a half ago, and we are delighted that we're going to be part of this community. I lived in Boca Raton for over 16 years, and when we found the new project for Westlake, well, we decided this is the place where we want to raise our family. During the process, we were able to find out that the community that we picked, which is Sky Cove, had great amenities, beautiful floor plans, and since our family is growing, well, we needed a house with at least 4 beds, 3 bathrooms, right? When everything was presented to us, there was also somebody mentioned that there was possibly I don't know if I'm using the right word, like a grant or maybe like a help that could be provided to new residents or new homeowners to get their house in Westlake. And but they mentioned that there was a cap for $350,000. When I saw the number, I was like, oh well, it's not gonna work for us, because even the smallest house, the smallest floor plan for that community is over $350,000. So, as I said, we already we are under contract and all of that, and the property that we bought, that was $389. After you add all the upgrades, that we didn't upgrade what my wife wanted, because if we did what she wanted, it would be like a $600,000 house, right? Then the price ended up being $434,000, which is a lot more than the cap, right? So I'm here to humbly ask if there is the city is taking any kind of consideration on that cap, because right now there's no house that you can buy for $350,000 a year, and as I said, it will be a big help for a family, you know, to be able to get to qualify for some kind of help. Now that we're trying to come here and be part of this project. Okay, that was it. That was my question.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mayor, I received no additional public comment cards. If we'll give the virtual audience a moment to raise their virtual hands. If you wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand, unmute your device, and state your name and address. If you're unable to raise your virtual hand, please unmute your device, state your name and your address. Mayor, I see no further comments.
Thank you. We'll move on with the consent agenda. This section of the agenda consists of routine or administrative items that require final approval by the City Council and may be approved in its entirety by one single motion. There will be no discussion of these items unless a City Council member requests such, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered on a future agenda. Do we have any comments on the consent agenda, or can we have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. This evening we have presentations Palm Beach County School District attendance zones by Jason Link, Manager of School Enrollment and Demographics.
Mr. Link has a presentation. If you'll give us a moment to bring that up. Mr. Link, you have capability to present.
Okay. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, council members. I'll be presenting an overview of school enrollment capacity and attendance zones. So this first map, this is an expanded view of the area displaying the surrounding schools. Westlake shaded in the light blue. The table at the top displays the schools in the area, with the schools highlighted in yellow being those in which students residing in Westlake are zoned. So we can see there are two elementary schools, Golden Grove, Loxahatchee Grove, zoned to Westlake, Osceola Creek Middle School, and Seminole Ridge High. So we take a quick look at the capacity and enrollment and utilization at those schools. We see Golden Grove capacity of 749. This October, which is the district's benchmark enrollment count, was 640. The school was down 43 students this year, but that's in line with most of our district schools. I mean, the vast majority of our schools show decreases in enrollment. So their current utilization is 85%. Loxahatchee Grove's capacity at 860, enrollment was 548, and down 79 students compared to last year, 64% currently utilized. Osceola Creek Middle capacity of 1075, enrollment of 742. They're actually a rare school that increased a little bit, 8 students, currently at 69% utilization. And finally, Seminole Ridge High, a capacity of 2351, enrollment of 2188, a little bit of a decrease at 33 and currently at 93% utilization. I also want to point out all 4 of those schools have our home to choice programs, which are open to out-of-zone students to apply and attend. As for the other schools, those are the other area schools nearby, including Acreage Pines just north at 92%, Frontier just to the northwest, currently at 70%. That would be the zoned elementary school for the future Indian Trails Grove development, consisting of nearly 4,000 units. Pierce Hammock, which is north of Acreage Pines, not visible on the map, that's currently at 50% utilization. That would be the zoned elementary school for Avenir, which is currently under construction at about 3,250 units. And then finally, we have Western Pines, which is right just adjacent to Golden Grove, who currently sits at 102% utilization. And that's a school that's been over 100% for at least 15 plus years. And I'd finally also like to point out on this map, if you see the two stars, the green star and the red star, those are the planned future schools, one of which located in Westlake, which is new elementary school known as 15E. Current estimated opening is August 2027. And finally, if you look at the northwestern part of the map, that's new high school 16 AAA. Current estimated opening August 2028. So we examine the district's capital plan each year, determine if those dates need to be moved up, moved back based on enrollment trends, et cetera. And we make those changes accordingly based on demographics and enrollment trends. All right, next slide. This is more of a zoomed-in map of Westlake, with the table at the right displaying total planned units, currently issued certificates of occupancy, and students residing in Westlake as of the benchmark October 2020 enrollment count. So we can see currently COs have been issued in the Hammocks, otherwise known as Pod Q, Meadows, Pod R, that's 320 in the Hammocks, 256 COs in the Meadows, 47 in Sky Cove, and 15 in Crestwind, which is a 55 plus adult community, which we don't apply our student generation calculators to that area because it is a 55 plus development. So that's a total of 613 COs issued, not including Crestwind. And as of October, we have 185 total K through 12 students residing in Westlake, and those were all at the time. Again, that was October, so in Sky Cove, there may have been some move-ins since October, but October, those move-ins were all in the Hammocks and the Meadows. Those students resided in the Hammocks and the Meadows. And of those 185 students, there's a 68% of the K-5 students attend their zone school of Golden Grove. 88% of 6th through 8th graders attend the zone middle school of Osceola Creek, and 73% of the 9th through 12th graders attend their zone school of Seminole Ridge. At the time of the October count, there weren't any students. Sky Cove would be the first portion zoned to Loxahatchee Groves Elementary, but at the time there weren't students residing there as of yet. Also want to indicate, importantly, the green line that you see sort of weaving through the subdivisions, that's the elementary school attendance zone. So the intent of our zones was never to split these subdivisions, so where you've got, for instance, half the Hammocks attending Golden Grove and half attending Loxahatchee Groves. So the zones they were drawn so each individual at the time pod or subdivision, all parcels within that pod will be zoned to a particular elementary, be it Golden Grove or Loxahatchee Grove. Over the past year or so, we initially relied on the CAD drawings when there weren't any homes developed on the ground. So as homes were constructed in real world, some of those lines we found were unintentionally split, and once we were made aware, we adjusted those lines as to the intention of the original line. So, and again, all middle school, all of Westlake zone to Osceola Creek, and all high school to Seminole Ridge High. All right, next slide. The next three slides these are just the individual elementary, middle, and high school zone maps. As you can see, this is the elementary zone layout. Again, there's the line that cleanly moves around those individual subdivisions, and there's the location for new elementary 15E, again anticipated for 2027. I do want to point out Golden Grove, located in the northeast portion of the city. They do have one choice program open to out-of-zone students. It's a technology program. And Loxahatchee Groves, located in the town of Loxahatchee Groves, just south of the city, they also have one choice program. It's a STEAM program, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. Here are the middle school attendance zones, with all of Westlake being zoned to Osceola Creek. I do want to point out there was an attendance zone change that took effect for the 2017-18 school year. This is before any homes were constructed on Westlake. This was to ensure that the entire city was zoned to one singular middle school, because even at that time, Western Pines Middle, although it is right next to Golden Grove, they were already at and projected to be over 100% utilization. So there wasn't space at the school to add any additional students, where Osceola Creek had plenty of space. So before any homes were built, we wanted to shift the entire city to one middle school, so that over the years, Westlake would be able to continue to fill up the school, and there would be seats available. And Osceola Creek is home to two choice programs, multimedia and television production, and pre-veterinary, which also again open to out-of-zone students. And these are the high school zones. The high school serves the city, Seminole Ridge Community High. And again, the northwestern portion of the map, there's New High School 16 at AAA, anticipated August 2028. Seminole Ridge High is home to four choice programs open to out-of-zone students. That would include Army, JROTC, biotechnology, construction, and television and film production. That's an overview of the Westlake area, more the geography and the zones and enrollment. Now I'm going to briefly go through the process for establishing school attendance zones. Why attendance zone changes? Optimize usage of existing school capacity, which typically is to relieve an over-enrolled school and also provide additional enrollment for under-enrolled schools. When we open a new school, which we are in a couple of years down in Boca Raton, we need to load that new school. So we need to change the attendance zones to properly load that new school and relieve the schools which that new school is set to provide relief for. And then closing or repurposing an existing school would also be the reason why we would change attendance zones. But primarily, for all of these reasons, the number one criteria, the most important aspect, is to optimize the usage of our existing school capacity. And here are the attendance zone change criteria as they're listed in, this is governed by School Board Policy 5.01. So when establishing attendance zones, the mandatory criteria listed in policy that we must adhere to is reviewing student capacity at each facility for reasonable efforts to achieve optimal utilization. Then there are a number of secondary criteria which are to be considered but don't necessarily have to be achieved based on the mandatory requirement that we seek to achieve, that we seek to optimize utilization. And I'll just go through a few of these. The creation or modification of boundaries not knowingly promote inequitable student assignment as related to transportation time and distance for all racial and ethnic groups. Zone boundaries should be as compact as possible to minimize bus travel time. That's something we looked at when we were zoning the portion of Westlake to Golden Grove. We did want to have some walkability and bikeability, so that's why that eastern portion of the city is zoned to Golden Grove to provide that. But the entire city could be zoned. There just wasn't enough space, and then we had an under-enrolled school, South Waxahachie Grove, so we needed to utilize the capacity in that school. Student capacity of each facility should be considered an initial enrollment set to ensure optimal utilization while allowing for growth wherever needed. That's again when we're looking at new development. Ensure there's enough seats to accommodate that additional growth that we anticipate from those new developments. Just the movement of students from current school attendance zone configuration should be minimized to the greatest extent possible. Next slide, just a few here. Avoid the creation of island or finger zones. Try to limit number of feeder schools into from the middle to a high, from 2 to 3, and then 2 to 4 elementaries feeding into a middle. And then finally, dividing of subdivisions should be avoided if feasible. And that's where I discussed in the prior slide, where those, the Westlake subdivisions, where they're each zoned to their own separate elementary school, that, we did not cut any of those or divide any of those. So you had, one of those particular subdivisions split between 2 elementary schools. And there's some more. I won't read the rest. Next slide. So this is our boundary flow chart. Might be a little cut off here, but So starting in the spring, we compile and release our 5-year enrollment projections, which is the planning guide to determine, which schools we may need to implement a solution to relieve crowding. And then we look at that, and if it's deemed that an attendance zone change is the only viable solution, then we begin to move forward. That fall, we check the projection against the 11th day count to see if they align, make sure actual enrollment aligns with projected enrollment, and if it's deemed it does, we move forward. We propose a boundary change, which then goes to what we call our advisory boundary committee, who is a group of 19 members of the community some appointed by the superintendent, the school board, and other League of Cities, ESE, NAACP, et cetera. There's a number of appointing organizations. Those folks meet numerous times, review the proposals, send it out for community input in the location of wherever those changes are being proposed. So we then take it out to the community, hear the community input. And then finally, the advisory boundary committee will recommend one final proposal to the superintendent, not the school board, but the superintendent. And then it's up to the superintendent to choose a final recommendation to the school board, in which case that usually occurs somewhere between December and March. Then the school board has to vote in 2 consecutive meetings, typically about a month apart, to approve the attendance zone change. And then if it's approved, it then takes effect for that August of that same year, for the next school year. Now, attendance zone change is not the only method we have to relieve over-enrolled schools. There are other options we first initiate before, we know attendance zone change sometimes aren't very popular with the community, so we seek other options first before landing at that option. So number one, if the school's closed, we monitor enrollment. Sometimes enrollment just may increase for a year and then come back down, so we monitor enrollment. We can initiate a program change, shifting ESE or pre-K to other schools that have available space. For instance, Loxahatchee Growth has a very large pre-K program, over 100 students. So just as an example, if they were overcrowded, that's just something, a school with a large number of ESE or pre-K, we could seek to shift that to other schools with available space. We can limit out-of-zone choice seats. And as I mentioned, all 4 of the schools that serve Westlake, they have choice programs. So we can begin to limit those. I mean, if the school accepts 50 students, we can reduce that to 30 one year, then to 20, then to 10, and then you start to see a cumulative effect of lessened enrollment because we have less and less choice seats available. Then we can also limit the choice programs to in-zone students only, also known as in-house seats. So if the school becomes over-enrolled, then no more out-of-zone seats, not even one. It's just an in-house program only. That's another method. We can utilize address verification to ensure all in-zone students actually reside in the zone. Re-registration of all students, including new proofs of address. That's an option that can be carried out by the principals. Then there's the attendance zone change, and then there's an addition of capacity or new school, but critical, that is subject to state of Florida DOE approval and/or available district capital funds. And we have many of these, as I mentioned, the 5-year projections in our annual enrollment reports. Those are available on the Student Enrollment and Demographics website at pbcschoolboundaries.info. Any proposed attendance zone studies and meeting dates at the ABC, those are posted to the website. Our annual enrollment reports, 5-year enrollment projections, the annual capacity watch list, that's something that's also mandated in policy, which we list schools that are projected to be at or over 100% in the next 5 years, as well as schools that are between 95 to 99%. So we post those annually, and then we've got all of our attendance zone maps on the website and all. So that's the presentation. Hope that was helpful, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Link. Does anyone have any questions?
I just have a quick question, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to it, but just correct me if I'm wrong, as it sits right now, none of the actual subdevelopments are getting split as far as zoning is concerned to go to different schools within the same subdevelopment?
That is correct. Correct. The intention of these zones, and as I previously mentioned, was we were using the initial CAD drawings. Of course, those were drawings before there were actual homes on the ground. So in some instances, the actual geography of where those homes were appearing were not exactly aligned. So the elementary attendance zone unintentionally split some of those subdivisions. Then the keyword unintentionally. So when we became aware, we made those corrections in our system. We notified all the affected schools. And make sure that those are clean lines. But you are 100% correct. None of those individual subdivisions are supposed to be split amongst two different elementary schools.
So within Sky Cove, we'll never have Tommy going to a different school than his next door neighbor, Johnny. Right?
Unless it's in a special
If they're in the same age and they're not choosing to go to magnet programs and so forth. But I just want to confirm. Okay.
Yeah, Sky Cove would be 100% zoned to Loxahatchee Groves, and then all of Westlake, Osceola Creek, and Seminole Ridge community. Correct.
When drawing out these zones and whatnot, what would you say the greatest challenge was when it came to Westlake? I mean, was it our growth?
Sure. I mean, 4,000 plus units. That's a lot of homes and a lot of students. So, knowing there were other large-scale developments in the region, Indian Trails Grove, Avenir, Arden, which is, further, right to line, a little further south of you. But that's a lot. That's thousands and thousands, pushing 10,000 new homes. So, we wanted a best balance. Rather than having all those kids fill up a school within a couple of years, we try to, and as I mentioned, part of our criteria, we must utilize, to the best of our ability, utilize the capacity in our facilities, in our schools. So, it was trying to balance, distance too. We didn't want to have elementary kids incur a 12-mile drive. So we wanted to balance distance plus utilizing our facility and ensuring we've got time to where, those seats over the years will fill before we require those new schools. So just the balancing of all those homes and where those students were going to attend utilizing our current existing schools.
Excellent. Mr. Link, great presentation. Thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
One thing, Mr. Mayor and public, we have been working our GIS department with Jason and several other in his department, and we do get them now. The plats, as soon as we've got them approved and signed and in our system, we're sharing that data with them so that they are having as close to real-time data as they can. And they're also getting inputs for the number of COs that are coming online. So we're trying to, usually there's a long delay and we're moving so fast, we're trying to get all the other agencies the information as quickly as possible. And they've been really good to work with. Once we found out the issue of splitting the groves, they were jumped on it real quick to get it corrected. I appreciate working with them.
Yes, thank you, Ken, and I second that. And the data you're providing is critical because that's, especially those CO estimates. I mean, that's really how our projections are able to become very accurate. So thank you very much, and that's extremely helpful to us as well. So I want to thank you for your cooperation on that. Thanks.
Mayor, if I may also note, the district's presentation will be available as a part of the council video tomorrow and available on the city's website. And anyone who would like a hard copy may also contact the city clerk's office.
Thank you. Thank you.
Darlene Carvalho, do I have to go to the podium?
Yes, please.
So I also want to thank Jason. After winter break, I had about 7 parents reach out to me. I'm Darlene Carvalho.
I'm sorry, can we state your name?
Yes, Darlene Carvalho, and I'm a resident in Westlake and also the principal at Acreage Pines Elementary.
And can you state your address, please?
That is right.
5948 Button Bush Drive.
Thank you.
So the parents started reaching out to me after winter break as they were moving in, and they were confused about where their boundaries were. So I reached out to Jason to see if I could share his contact information. I know this is a horrible time for him because we're waiting for our budgets and our projections and choice programming, and I'm always calling, begging him for more seats. So I want to thank him. I currently have, as part of my pre-K and choice program, almost 20% of our Westlake elementary children at Acres Pines. So even though we're not a boundary school, we have a lot of those great public school options. So I just want to make sure everyone in the community is aware that Acres Pines is out there and will continue to take as many children as we can. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
I'm glad I could be the example for you.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Bermudez. I live at 16091 Whippoorwill Circle, and I'm also the ESC coordinator at Acres Pines Elementary at one of the local schools. So my question was that what was considered when determining the estimated time frame for the new elementary school that will possibly be here in a few years? I think the time frame was like 7 years, so 2027. Is there a way to expedite, or is it possible that process? I'm just asking because I don't think any of us expected for our city to grow as rapidly as it has. And just in listening to the conversation now and Jason speaking and all of that, I just thought that I would ask, is there a way that 7 years seems like a really, a far time frame for something that maybe the city needs a little sooner than 7 years?
Mr. Link, are you still on?
I am still on.
Oh.
Yeah, so that is, that's part of the capital plan, which is updated annually. So, yes, I mean, your projections in Westlake, definitely, you're at a much quicker pace than we anticipated when we spoke to you, 3 years ago, much quicker. So that's analyzed each year when we run the projections and see how many students are actually coming out of Westlake. And it's based on the projections. It's really based on projected need. And then also remember, we need to first, before we can build a school, we need to ensure we're utilizing all the capacity in our surrounding schools. So if we've got a school, Waxahachie Grove sitting at 65% or 70%, it may be tough to garner approval for a new school when we have all those seats available. So before we can even start, hitting the ground for a new school or, commencing construction, we need to make sure first that we're utilizing all that surrounding capacity, that there is absolutely, none left or projected in the very near future. There won't be any left. And we have an overage that's, then going to justify that new school. But that date, the 2027 date, those are not set in stone. Those are adjusted annually based on enrollment trends, demographics, pace of housing construction. On the flip side, the entire district, we experienced a large decrease in enrollment. So there are questions, how quickly will the district rebound? If it's going to take a number of years, that might push back the need for a new school. If enrollment rebounds quickly, then that 2027 date, or it could even be sooner, that it may be needed, quicker than that. So it's really annualized. It's analyzed on an annual basis. We look at all that demographic data, enrollment projections, development data, COs issued, and we make that final, and then of course existing capacity, and then we make that final determination of where in the capital plan does the school need to be. Pushed back, moved up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
The Department of Education also takes a role in that. They have to, even if Palm Beach County wanted to move forward with that, the Department of Education still would have to move this.
Okay, if we have nothing further on that subject, we're going to move to the public hearing. We're going to start with we have a presentation along with this, the resolution for the final plat Orchids of Westlake, Phase 1.
Mr. Herring, if you give me a moment, I'll give you the presenter capabilities.
Thank you very much, Zoe.
You're ready to go, Mr. Herring.
Okay, very good. And then to advance the slide, I just hit the normal button to go forward, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, my name is Donaldson Herring, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Minto. And we're so excited to present to you the first phase of our next community that's going to come out of Westlake. As you're well aware, there's been tremendous success and a lot of desire of residents to be able to take advantage of the great opportunities that we offer at the city of Westlake. So we're excited about the growth and all the things and all the benefits that it brings. So the next community that we're bringing forward is in Parcel S as in Sam. As you're aware, Pod O and Pod T, which are on the south side of Persimmon Boulevard, are under construction right now. And we're looking forward to bringing forward to you Pod S, which is east of Pod P1 and P2, which are the Crestwind communities. So in aggregate, this parcel will contain a total of 598 single-family homes of the same genre and size and architectural prototypes that we have been delivering throughout Westlake to date, meaning what Minto is delivering. So this particular boundary will contain 358 homes at a density of about 3.65 units to the acre. So this is the entirety of Pod S. Pod S will contain two phases. We'll have the second plat for Pod S on the March 8th agenda, but everything to the north of the yellow line that's in front of you, which are a total of 358 homes, are a part of the plat that has been reviewed and approved administratively by your staff. The parcel contains a variety of homes, both in the 50-foot and 65-foot lot sizes. We do have some, what we would say, some back-to-back lots, which were very popular in the Groves because of the pricing included in both phases. We will have two main entrances to Pod O or to Pod S, the orchards. One off of Town Center Parkway east, and then also one off of Persimmon to the south. So it'll be a really great new community that we're able to bring forward. So phase one, again, as I noted, contains the 358 homes as shown on the site plan here. Again, the site plans are very comparable to what you've seen in the hammocks, within the meadows, and most recently within Groves. So we're very excited about this. Total of 267 of the 358 lots will be 50-foot wide, and we have 91 lots that will be of the larger 65-foot lot sizes, and again, located strategically throughout the community. Of course, tonight we're here not necessarily to talk about the site plan, but the plat, which is part of the agenda tonight. And so this plat has been reviewed by your city attorney, by Seminole Improvement District, by the city engineer's office, and has been found to be compliant with the requirements of the Florida statutes for platting. I won't get into all of the details of every single sheet on the plat because it's very technical in nature. But this has been determined to be consistent with the requirements of the Florida statutes. So we're here to request your approval tonight and to certainly be available to answer any questions that you have. We look forward to being with you next month on your March 8th agenda for the second phase of this particular plat of the orchards of Westlake. As well as Pod M2, which is a new townhome community that we're very excited to introduce to you next month, which will be very much so more in that affordable range that many of you are looking for. So with that, I will conclude my presentation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from the speakers?
Mr. Mayor and Council, this plat was put forth in front of Sid at its meeting at 4 o'clock this afternoon and was approved.
Okay, thank you. Zoe, could you read the resolution by title, please?
Yes, Mayor. Resolution 2021-03, a resolution of the City Council for the City of Westlake, Florida, approving the final plat for Orchards of Westlake Phase 1, being portions of Sections 5, 6, 7, and 8, all in Township 43 South, Range 41 East, City of Westlake, Palm Beach County, Florida, providing for recordation, providing for an effective date.
Do we have any questions or discussions on this item from the council?
One more point of information, Mr. Mayor and Council. All of the lakes for all of Pod S will be constructed in the first together in the beginning.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Even though, because its entire drainage system is all going to be put together in one shot.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have any questions? So no questions from the council? You have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution for the final plat, Orchard of Westlake Phase 1.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch who seconded the motion.
Mr.
Paul.
Councilman Paul.
Motion made by Councilwoman Crump, seconded by Councilman Paul. Roll call. Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Yes.
Mayor Manning.
Yes.
Councilman Paul.
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Move on to item B. It's the first reading. An ordinance to be known as the noise ordinance, ordinance 2021-02. Presentation or comment by legal.
Mayor and Council, this is being brought before you. It's a typical ordinance. It's not anything out of the ordinary. We're still proceeding along that path of incorporating rules and regulations for the city of Westlake that will apply. So this addresses some of the what would typically be nuisance noise sounds within a residential community, provides for a mechanism of enforcement should these issues arise as we continue to develop and grow. We would recommend approval of what's before you this evening.
Thank you. Do we have any discussion on this ordinance?
I have several questions. So most importantly, what was the decision making in terms of the specifics of say, so for the record, audio and video is what I do. Like I'm very familiar with this. For the specifics as far as the dB levels in terms of this ordinance itself.
In particular, I looked at the town of Jupiter. It's one that has been in litigation.
Right.
The court did not strike down what they had in their codes of ordinances. So that's something that is legally defensible.
So if I'm not mistaken, Jupiter's at a 75 dB for the public events, which is my main concern. My vision for the city has always been, especially in a post-COVID world, outdoor fun venues with live music, and we actually have an amphitheater already in the city. And from what I understand, Jupiter's at 75 and ran into issues. Well, you know, that country concert that they did last year at the amphitheater under this ordinance wouldn't have been allowed. That exceeded these numbers. So I guess a couple questions I have would be, would the city be able to issue some kind of special permit to exceed those levels? Because at these levels, we couldn't even have like that movie night.
It is contemplated in here that for special events, they can exceed those noise levels. And that's something that would come before this council, if you have something that's going to exceed that for those special events. So that would be an exception, if you will.
And then the last question, I didn't see it on here, but from what I understand, at least with the county noise ordinance, the levels get measured at like for a nuisance call, the levels will get measured at the complainant's location, not at the actual location of, say, 15-year-old quinceanera or whatever. I didn't see that addressed in this ordinance.
That is left at their discretion. I did raise that question with them in terms of how they measure, and that your comment is consistent with how they measure. If I make the call and complain about my neighbor, they're going to come to my property line and say, can I hear it? There are certain measures, distant measures in here, and they will look at those and measure them as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should look at the actual specifics of the DBAs because they're just really low. And like some of the language in here, I don't know. The yelling, like a young child couldn't yell as he goes down this slide of the adventure park. It's just, it seems a little bit like over-governance. I just want to caution us from getting away from a city that could attract these fun commercial venues, you know, microbrewery, outdoor music, and live bands and stuff like that.
What are the time restrictions on this?
It's 7 to 11. So 11 o'clock. And it only gets adjusted by 10 dBs anyways. It's low and then it's still low.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't disagree as long as it's, we're talking about the area we have, you know, if it's at that location. Now, Westlake has plenty of house parties and whatnot. And, you know, one neighbor might, the other neighbor might not want to partake in that. And I understand what you're saying. I like to party myself too. But you have to be mindful of those that just don't.
Right.
Whether they're elderly or just, it's not their thing, whatever. So just to generally say, well.
So I didn't have so much an issue with the residential DBA levels, but it's specifically separated between residential and then mixed use, which would be a lot of our commercial businesses, and then commercial itself, so like the actual amphitheater, to have concerts and whatnot. It's still pretty low. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jupiter is at 75. We're at 60. 15 dBA is huge. It's the difference between not hearing and hearing. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention.
Well, since this is first reading, I'm sorry, am I talking out of order?
No, you can go ahead.
Since this is first reading, maybe can Council Legal and Councilman O'Connor sit down and look at some of the numbers and then come back to us? Okay.
We can certainly increase these numbers if this becomes a problem. Even if it's adopted on second reading, you can always adjust the ordinance. That's what they're here for. You can change it at any point going forward if this seems to be too onerous. So these are recommendations, and certainly we're open to making changes.
Well, seeing that Councilman O'Connor is the expert on the matter, I don't know if it is possible to create some sort of example of the various noise levels, because you can tell me 75 dB all day long, does not mean anything to me.
Same.
I just know if somebody yells excessively loud and it bothers me. I don't know how many dBs. So for those of us that don't know, it might be beneficial to somehow have an idea of what is that actually.
I agree. Maybe we could have some kind of a presentation of examples of dB levels. You know,
throw a party at each house.
Yeah. There you go. Full-blown concert at wherever is X dB, but the simple movie, you know, like we've had in the past already, would measure at X dB. Or if there's some way we can paint a picture for those who aren't in the audio
in
industry.
Relationship, I can very well hear whatever goes on at the high school when I'm sitting outside my house. Does it bother me? No. Do I know how many dBs that is? I have no idea. So somebody else may be sitting in their backyard and like, God dang it, the band is not hitting the right notes, whatever, I don't know.
Right, so maybe some examples, some clear examples. A dog barking generally is X dB. You know, we do some actual research and then present it so the rest of the council really understands. Because 60 is just not enough.
LT.
Come forward.
Captain.
Captain.
Sorry, let's, Captain Turner. Captain Turner.
Thank you, appreciate it. Kevin Turner, PBSO. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page because I haven't spoken with anybody yet for the city about how your enforcement actions are going to take place as far as noise problems. And usually with the county and with Loxahatchee Groves, we'll come out and do the initial complaint, try to calm the party down, do what we can, but we don't have noise decibel meters. That's usually done with code enforcement, where we come out and take the initial documentation on different events, and I don't know, that's where I want to sit down with you guys and or with Ken and see where you're at with your code enforcement, because they're the ones that actually take the actions. And so I know you're saying, hey, you come out, you don't know what the noise meters are. We're not going to either, but we're going to document the situation and see, hey, okay, you can hear it 4 houses over, and if it's a continuing situation, but code enforcement is usually the person that comes out and actually takes action on the noise complaints after you get 1 or 2 of them, or I don't know what your plans are for calling them out, but I think we need to sit down and kind of establish that too before we go much further with the noise ordinance stuff.
Agreed. Yeah. A little more research.
And again, the resident aspect of it, I completely understand. It's these fun businesses, the first thing they do when they're going to go to a new city, if they have outdoor music, is they look up the noise ordinance, and they're going to say, we're never going to Westlake. We can't have our live band that loves to play. But that's like the angle that I'm looking at it at. Okay. Commercial.
Well, but that being said, the commercial, I would expect to be, well, I'm assuming they are on the other side of Seminole Press. Is that what you
correct?
have in
By
mind?
this ordinance, it's just not enough.
No.
So really,
You have the whole town center that you could.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what all that counts in. I've never heard anybody play anything counts in it. And, you know, the pool there, whatever.
right.
You know, the entire pod, I think it's the original pod, where the sales center, that 50-something acres in there, is basically your mixed downtown use potentially. There could be numbers of indoor, outdoor establishments, restaurants, music, et cetera, once that gets developed. We don't know at this point in time. Right. But that could be, in other words, it wouldn't necessarily be everything on the other side of Seminole Pratt, so you don't have to worry about it.
It's very close to.
I just don't want to discourage these fun businesses from wanting to come to Westlake.
Have we had any noise complaints as of yet?
No, honestly, I really haven't heard of any complaints coming out of Westlake so far. It's no, honestly, there's really been nothing.
Having dealt with this in the past at other locations, sometimes it's not necessarily the dB level. It can be depending on where the event is happening. Had one occurrence where the dB level was well within it at the property line where it was emitting, but it was going across water, and it was base, and it was driving the people across the waterway crazy. But it was well within the standards of the dB level. So the attorney and I have talked about this on it's not just dBs, it's sound range, it's various things that we have to continue to look at. Or just know that in certain cases, you're going to hear it. It may annoy people, but it may well fit within what we've established as a noise ordinance. It's not easy. It's not a fun one.
Sure. It's not just cut and dry.
The ordinance, does that include fireworks and such?
Again, that would be one of those special permit items, so that would be an exception. You would not call out either code compliance or PBSO to address that if the city has issued a special permit for a 4th of July, something. So those occasions are accepted out. There's also a process for a business. If a restaurant comes in there and they're going to have special events every month. They're going to do something. If the council approves that, or here's your list of things for this year, your 12 events, that's accepted out. So if residents call and complain, they're going to be informed that, no, this has been approved by the council for these events. You try to work with that business owner to deal with the noise complaints if that arises and make adjustments to accommodate for it.
That's specific to the fireworks. If I completely understand people want to pop these things and then 4th of July and then the New Year's, those are events, people want to do that. However, I don't know if there's a time limit. I'm talking to all the people that do own dogs, and if you not have a dog, you cannot understand just how crazy they go. How crazy they go. I mean, I have a dog. They're shaking. They're really getting scared. So fireworks in the evenings when it's dark, that's all nice and good. You can actually see them. But to pop this stuff all day, every day for 3 days, and 3 days before and after the event, don't think it hurts to have a regulation in that regard. And I know I'm not going to make friends, but that's fine. I think that's something to consider, that, maybe there's a time limit, before and after the event, where you can actually do that kind of stuff.
Well, I could tell you right now, I know Ken wants to call Jamie Tickham down in Loxahatchee Groves. They're about 6 months ahead of you on this argument as far as bringing in town ordinances for fireworks. And they've had some growing pains with it, but since the state statute was changed,
Right, that's what I was going to ask about.
yeah, there's some legal issues they're coming across with what they can and can't enforce. But your city, you can always make it more strict. But there were some issues as far as enforcement actions that could be taken during, like you said, New Year's, 4th of July, and other special occasions.
Well, I'm looking at it more, I guess, as an appeal rather than I know that kind of stuff.
I'm a dog owner too. I get it, because my dog does not handle fireworks well.
I know it's hard to enforce, but to put it out there and say, hey, we would like to keep this within limits.
Well, you could do that in the city, but you're surrounded by the acreage.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put that out there, and those are the ones you need to worry about, I think, more than the people shooting them up in the city.
I know.
Correct me if I'm wrong, also, Captain. Doesn't the state statute, green light fireworks on New Year's Eve?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
The state statute, green light, I live by the baseball field, and they do fireworks on the weekend. So, like we were saying, it's the state statute, so it's just the dogs go crazy. As your city grows, things like that may happen. We don't know what may be built here in the city. So you have a big baseball field or soccer field or something, and they may want to have concerts there, and that may be a part of the show.
No concerts.
So I think it's a great conversation. Again, I just would recommend that conversations be had between Councilman O'Connor and the attorney, as well as then maybe Councilman O'Connor, you speaking with Captain Turner, and then coming back to council, and we discuss again and move forward with just some solid, solid numbers collected from what you guys talk about. Especially since it's just the first.
There's a suggestion to table this.
I'll make the motion to table it.
Mayor, before you move on, we did have a public comment card from Catherine Rossmo of Lewis, Longman, and Walker. Would you still like to speak, Ms. Rossmo?
Thank you, Doug.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, or evening at this point. I'm Catherine Rossmell, attorney with Lewis, Longman & Walker, and I was actually coming to ask you to table this ordinance, so I'm happy to hear that's going well, but I'd like to bring a few other things to your attention to maybe work on while it's being tabled. First and foremost, like you mentioned, Mento has an amphitheater that's been in service for about a year. It's not completely clear how existing infrastructure will be able to become a certified outdoor venue under this, so we just like that process clarified. We were also looking at the DB levels. I'm not an expert. I had to reach out to someone and do some Googling, so we're waiting to get some information back on that. But they also appear to us to be too low to continue to use that use. Some of what's in this ordinance also directly conflicts with an ordinance you adopted last year in property maintenance. So whatever is done in this ordinance will need to be cleaned up in that ordinance so that you don't have two conflicting ordinances. That's a big problem. And structurally, this ordinance contains some really large problems in terms of it's based around different sound zones, which are supposed to be tied to zoning districts. But the zoning districts mentioned in this ordinance are not actually zoning districts in the city of Westlake. So, for example, there's no industrial zoning district in the city of Westlake, so it's not really clear what that's supposed to apply to. Same with commercial. There's no allowance made for what should be done in town center. There's no allowance made for what should be done in the Meadows district. So those type of things really need to be cleaned up because we do want to avoid a harborside situation where you could have this thriving, vibrant downtown and it's a noise ordinance issue that's maybe preventing that from happening. But of course, we want to respect the residents and make sure, I see your dog and raise you as a noise-sensitive infant. Those things are problems, and so Minto just wants to make sure that these sound zones are tailored to the appropriate areas. There are some restrictions in there that seemed a little bit over the top, like prohibiting a family from testing its generator on a Sunday. That felt a little unnecessary to us. There also should probably be an exemption for maintenance on a Sunday, particularly if a hurricane is coming. Just a little bit more loosening of those types of standards would probably be very logical. And finally, there's a lot of technical edits we'd like to suggest. For example, there are 17 words defined. 10 of them are never used in the ordinance, so that should be cleaned up. There are references to sections that don't exist in this ordinance or other ordinances. So just we are just suggesting it be tabled to kind of address these issues and retool it. The concept of a noise ordinance, I don't think it's a problem, but this particular example just needed a little bit more cleanup. So we would just ask you to take that into consideration as you continue to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you put that in the form of a memo to
Absolutely.
send
Yes.
to our city attorney?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there are no further,
Do we need to read by title to make the motion to table?
we already have it. Okay. So, if there's no further discussion on this,
Motion to table the noise ordinance, because we have a lot of cleaning it up to do.
so, your motion, go ahead, please.
Motion to table the noise ordinance.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion to table the noise ordinance 2021-01, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Roll call. Vice Mayor Long Robinson,
Yes.
Mayor Manning,
Yes.
Councilman Paul,
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump,
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor.
Yes.
Motion to table carries.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to new business. Item A, an agreement for enforcement of the traffic laws of the state between the city of Westlake and the Meadows of Westlake Homeowners Association. Anybody admin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, it has been a long time coming. Between the homeowners associations in the city and who really needed to have this agreement. First it was thought it was the county, in reality it's the city. City attorney and I, in conjunction with the applicants as well as the PBSO, have reviewed the document. This one will become our boilerplate, basically. Hammocks will utilize this. We'll be changing the names to Hammocks HOA since that's already apart from Minto at this point in time. But we wanted to use the Meadows as the first one. It becomes our boilerplate. We'll use the same one for all of our subdivisions and builders as they come in. With each subsequent HOA, we'll use the same basic format. But it does authorize the PBSO to go into the private gated roads and enforce traffic, etc.
Mayor, just one additional comment on there. Late last week, I did get a few additional comments from PBSO's council. There are a few changes they would like to make to the agreement. They're not substantial. They want to be added to the indemnification provision. There was a provision requiring an exhibit D for them to have an affidavit that they approve and agree with this. They want to change that language so that a specific exhibit isn't required. but that they do acknowledge that they'll be providing these services out here in the communities. So the request is that the motion is made to approve this, that it's substantially in this form, so we'll be allowed to make those changes and get the agreement executed. Those changes will be incorporated in any other agreements that are brought back for the additional neighborhoods.
Do we have any discussion from the council on this? Any questions?
The only question I have is there a cost implication for the city in administering new areas for PBSO to be able to?
PBSO covers the entire city. It just gives them the authority to be inside to do the traffic enforcement, correct, Captain?
Yes. What I would say, usually there would be a small cost associated with it because you have to create ticket books. That would be for the city, but we've actually switched over to a new software program so we can add your city ordinances to that software program. So if they write a citation, it will come out on our regular citation books. The only cost that might have to happen is how they usually do it is the citations go over to the county clerk's office, and other cities will have somebody in that office that will split off where the fines go if a portion goes back to the city. And that there might be a cost associated with that, but I'm sure I'll work with Ken and see how that'll happen. But as far as PVSO is concerned, no. We can, once we get all the ordinances, we upload them into our system, and the deputies that work there and any deputy in the agency that fills in Westlake for whatever reason would have that in their system, and so there's no cost associated with that. There just might be one on the tail end where your magistrate and whatever else you have in place where they figure out how to cipher the city of Westlake citations out from the regular county ones.
Excellent. So our contract price for police.
Nothing changes with that. No.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mayor, there is a provision in here under 4C, bill for cost reimbursement. Should that come up in the future, there was a concern with the developer about that cost reimbursement. There was no suggested changes to that language, but we could address any of those potential costs with the communities as they arise. But the provision is here to contemplate for that in the future.
Excellent.
Thank you. Any further questions? We need a motion on this.
Mayor?
Move forward.
Mayor, excuse me. We have a public comment card received from Tara Dewey of Lewis, Longman, and Walker.
All right. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Tara Dewey, Lewis, Longman, and Walker on behalf of Minto PDLH. Yes, we are excited to enter into the agreement. We understand that the residents are anxious to have this in place. I did want to take up the costs issue that Attorney Booker just discussed. As it's currently written, and this is more of a concern for when these agreements are turned over to, the HOAs are turned over to residents. The way the cost section is currently written, it's very open-ended and would allow the city to, without prior approval from the HOA, pass along costs to the HOA. Because of the way HOAs are structured, we would request that any costs that the city is interested in passing on be articulated in the agreement, and as it's my understanding there aren't any right now, I would strike that paragraph because I think everything else is covered aside from those costs, or at least make some language in there that would allow the HOA to be notified in advance of the cost, because again, once this is turned over to the residents, I don't think they're going to want suddenly a large special assessment without having some prior knowledge. So that's just a comment we would like to pass along for your consideration as you approve this.
Do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, rather than strike the provision 4C, it says the community shall reimburse the city for actual costs. We can change that to may and add the notice in advance to the community of any costs incurred by the city. So
I think, if I may, the only problem I have with that is it still doesn't give the HOA the ability to not incur the cost, which again, I'm speaking on behalf of the residents at this point for you to consider. I think some prior approval, or if it's required, I don't know, that there's just some tweaking that I think would be in order to make that a little fairer to the residents to understand what costs would and will be passed on to them before they're incurred by the city, if possible.
Should there be a time limit prior to any cost, and if they just giving them plenty of time discuss ahead of 90 days, 60 days.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
If I recall, most HOAs run on a calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking at their budgets in around October.
Okay.
So I would, if we're going to have some pre-notification of potential cost increase, I would recommend that we probably have to get it to them by August or September so that they can calculate it into their budget projections to take to their people prior to establishing their budget for the year.
Yeah. I think that should be written in.
I'm sorry. I think that would satisfy us if there was some prior approval period for the residents to understand what the cost would be before they're incurred. I think at the budget years it makes sense to me. I think that would address our concerns.
Okay.
We can make that change. It just works both ways. If the city incurs any additional costs, it gives the city the opportunity to pass that on to the HOA, but then I have no objection to giving them notice of those costs in advance. So we can make the changes. I'll run that to the council prior to us getting this executed, as well as the 2 changes requested by CVS Road Council.
So we're going to bring this back.
We don't have to bring it back if you approve it substantially in this form with the comments that you've received tonight. We'll get it executed accordingly.
If there's no further discussion, we'll have a motion. I don't know who's going to remember how to put that all together.
Yeah, just substantially in this form, you don't have to cite all the discussion.
You can make it. I can make it. I'll make it if you want.
I know the adjustment is in 4C, so we need to make sure the language adjustment is included in.
There's
several adjustments.
Substantial form with taking into consideration the comments that have been made today.
Correct.
Okay. Good.
JP got it.
I'll make the motion to approve the traffic agreement in substantial form, taking into consideration the comments that have all been made.
I'll second.
We have a motion made by Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Mayor Manning?
Yes.
Councilman Paul?
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Move on to item B, interlocal agreement for assignment of property data and development of annual assessments for Palm Beach County non-ad valorem. Say it again. Non-ad valorem districts.
Correct. Mayor and council and public, this is the, shall we say, one of the final steps in making sure that the solid waste fee is on your tax bill. In order to do that, we need to get the data from the tax collector and work with the tax collector to make sure the rolls are correct and the mailings, et cetera. And this is that agreement that allows that to happen. Also part of this agreement is it allows them to, I think it's specified in here, if not, there's an agreement typically now with the privacy and those that are exempt from public records. In order to get the full assessment roll, we have to agree to protect that information as a city. Otherwise, all of a sudden you're missing folio numbers, name, everything is gone, so you really don't know what you have. So this allows us to get that toll, that information, and requires us to protect it and keep and make sure that it's tagged as exempt on the situation. But this is the final piece. We do this in lots of other cities, districts, et cetera, to get those tax roll information down. It's recommended.
Thank you. Do we have comment on this item?
Is this really the final step? Are you sure?
When there's processes through the year, we have to notify them by prior to June 15th. and what that fee is going to be so that it can get into their system. So we're keying up all the potential costs there, which makes it a little tricky because you're not exactly sure what the rate increase is. So you have to, how else do I say it? Magic. Figure out a number that should hit and be careful. But generally, you can go by past increases and what's going on and saying get pretty close.
Great.
Forecasting is not an exact science.
No, that's why they call it forecasting. Okay. Any comments from the public on this?
No, Mayor, it's not for public hearing.
Well, we sure have them anyhow. So I might well ask before someone says, can they? Okay. So we have
Need a motion to approve.
Motion to approval?
Motion to approve interlocal agreement with Palm Beach County Information System Services for assignment of property data and development of annual assessments.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Roll call. Councilman Paul?
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Manning?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, item C, advisory board consideration to appoint one alternative member for a 4-year term to the planning and zoning board. Presented by City Clerk.
Mayor, at the January 11th regular City Council meeting, Council directed staff to provide applications to Council to review and select an alternate member to the Planning and Zoning Board. The following applicant was identified to be qualified for the board. This item was published January 12th with a deadline of January 26th. We received Mr. Francisco Castoya Jr.'s application January 22nd.
Thank you. I looked this resume over. Very qualified person. I think you're lucky to have someone like that and be an alternate. Do we have a presentation or just
He's the only applicant, I think.
Yeah. So, I guess if that's the case, we have to have a motion to accept. Motion to appoint.
I make the motion to appoint, and I hope I don't get his name, Mr. Francisco Frank Cuestoya Jr.
Okay, Wesley? Oh, yes? Yeah. Okay. Sure.
I'll second that.
I have a motion made by Vice Mayor Long Robinson to appoint Francisco Frank Castoya Jr., seconded by Councilwoman Crump. Roll call. Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Manning?
Yes.
Councilman Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, that moves us on to City Council comments. I will start with Mr. John Paul O'Connor.
Just want to thank staff for all their hard work and all the presenters tonight and all the commenters. Thank you.
Councilman Paul.
I talked to Mr. Castle a while ago about phone numbers and residents being able to access the various departments, engineering and whatnot, a little easier. With that, I have a question, and this leaf that you talked to J.P. O'Connor about there. Is there, it happened on my house when it first got built, the house shifted, the gas line broke and leaked. Is there a phone number that the residents can call and get direct access to somebody that can help them. See that Sid is
put your Sid hat on.
Or the one authority that does anything with water.
There is an after-hours SID number, emergency line. With the leak that occurred the other week, we did have an issue with the phone system getting to the right people. That has been addressed. We're actually continuing to rework on that as to the phone tree situation, but they would call that after-hours emergency number. One of the things that we had occurred is that people were considering an emergency to turn on their water or do various things, and they were hitting emergency all the time. So we're looking at how to revamp that system to make sure it does get to the right person. But also, if it's as a point of information, if it appears to be from the meter box to the house, call customer service first, because that is a customer-based side.
Customer service for
Minto, or whoever your builder is. In other words, if it's anywhere from the meter box to your house, where there's a pipe break, under the first year or whatever your warranty period is, that is a warranty item by the builder. It should be addressed by them first. But you can also, at the same time, contact SID so that we can get out and turn the water off as well.
For the average homeowner, I've seen some of these Facebook, the people are frantic. When there's water leak and they don't know.
Understood.
They have a hard time determining whether it's on one side or the other. All they know is they need help.
Call the SID number. We'll handle it from there. And we'll advise whether it's a SID side issue or customer service issue.
Well, can we put that number on the website, or I don't know if there's a better way to, on the.
As soon as we get it linked up, like I said, we're working on some modifications to it. We'll get it linked up. We'll get it on the city's website as well as on the city's website.
I have another question for Sid. And I don't know. I realize Minto or whoever the homeowner or the builder is, well, they're the builder. But a lot of people do not know that they can or then how to turn off the water in the irrigation box in the main water feed. Is there something that SID can do so that when people buy their houses in that package, put something in that package where people know this is how I can turn off my water if I ever have a problem?
On the customer side, that would be something we'll have to work with from the city side and from SID's side, work with the builders to make sure that that's clearly articulated to the homeowner as to where your main shutoff is. You should.
Yeah, I mean, these boxes on the SID's jurisdiction, no?
The box on the water meter shutting the water off, yes. But there is a separate valve at your house for the main shutoff to the house.
Yeah, but like I said, if I see water in the yard and even Vice President Minto had that same problem, and I turned his water off. I did. But anyway, you know.
Well, the bottom line is you really don't want customers on the entity side that's providing water turning on and turning off valves.
But it's usually provided, it's right under the spigot, right, at your house.
Generally, I'm not sure where they're located. Do you know where you're located?
Yeah, it's right on the side of the house.
Right on the side of the house where the main line comes in, there's usually a valve right there.
Well,
it'll shut off to the house.
It's just if it's leaking in the yard. The thing is, my point is that
Understood.
It starts leaking Friday night. I'm trying to find somebody that helps me out.
Call SID.
Nobody can. Meanwhile, when it's all said and done, I have a $250 water bill that I can't pass on to anybody, and I've had that happen to me. So I'm trying to protect people from having this water bill that nobody that want to
call the SID emergency number,
which is and can be posted.
It will be posted. I don't have it on top of me right this minute.
Okay.
And I think it'll be
behooving to get with the developers and make sure that in their package that people are very aware of.
We'll check the information where it is, yes.
One quick thing I missed on, if completely off topic, but Ken, as part of your manager's update, if you could share any knowledge you have on phase 2 of the amenity center?
Yeah, actually, trying to remember from this morning's meeting, phase 2 amenity center, Nielsen, you know the date. When's it coming in? We had a discussion on it this morning.
Wow.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Currently, it's being reviewed by engineering and planning and zoning. We are reviewing the site plan, and hopefully it will be in front of council to be considered for approval in March or April.
Yeah, we're originally scheduled for April. I think we're trying to move it up to the March because we're moving through fast enough. So it'll either be on your March agenda or your April agenda.
It's under review. Right now, it's under review.
And once approved by council, when do you anticipate them actually breaking ground?
It depends on when they get their building permits in. My understanding, is Don Herring still on?
He is still on. Mr. Herring, are you able to hear us?
Once it's in front of council at that hearing, we can provide further information when they will be breaking ground. Definitely, I will be asking that question. So it will be in front of you.
Wonderful news for a lot of residents.
We'll follow it up.
Any further? Councilman Paul?
No, other than that phone number and any other phone number really associated with, make it easier for residents to actually get a hold of the departments that they need to.
Councilwoman Trump.
I don't really have anything to say other than I just wanted to welcome Francisco Centoya Jr. to the board.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh, he's here.
Mayor, Vice Mayor,
How
council members.
do you like how I said it's a very qualified person?
There you go.
I'm
Frank
glad
Osoyo.
I said that now that you're. I'm glad I didn't say something else.
Good evening to all. Frank Osoyo, 15871 Meadowlark Court, residents in Westlake, moved in September. Next to my son-in-law, my daughter Bianca, that live here also. And I want to thank you for appointing me to the board. It'll be a pleasure serving the residents of the city of Westlake. Been practicing architecture for 38 years and sit on many boards, including the Board of Architecture appointed by last three governors, Charlie, Chris, and Scott and Al DeSantis. So I look forward to helping out with good, orderly growth in the city.
Welcome aboard. Yeah. Thank you for applying.
You're welcome.
Mayor.
Just piggybacking off what was said, I think now that we have, and I don't know who would work on it on the website. I know Ken, you and I talked about it in a meeting before, but adding those tabs possibly for projects, what has been approved, what has been started. I know Palm Beach Gardens has that on their website. I think that would be good to add, and then maybe who to call tab. I do know that I noticed that the information for public for the vaccine for those who may want to be vaccinated is up on the website, so I think that's good. So I think now that we have the public relations team, maybe tapping into them to create or add other tabs on the website, so that, you know, everybody is informed. And that's all.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to also thank everyone for their comments and their input. And thanks city staff. With that, we'll move on to staff reports. And we'll start with the city attorney.
The report is in the packet. If anyone has any questions, we can go through any of that information. I know the council received an email from Mr. Diefenbacher regarding Chapter 5 last week. The city's draft of Chapter 5 had been provided to the city manager the week before. If any of you would like a copy of that with the red line, I'll be happy to share that with you. We're trying to set up a meeting to go through those edits and changes, as well as some comments from the city manager, to have that on the next available agenda as soon as we can work through those comments. So we'll keep those things moving.
Could you copy me on that, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. Same, please. Mr. City Manager.
Several of them. As a follow-up on Chapter 5, read all the versions. We're a lot closer than we were a year ago. I think for the most part, substantially, we're all on the same page. A few little things here and there that we need to look at and work through, but other than that, I think we're in really good shape to get this thing finalized and put to bed, which I'm looking forward to. The second item I have is I sent you all a memo on Friday regarding the HAPPY program. It was brought up today. On my recommendations, I'd like to have council's input as to looking at moving the cap to the 365 and potentially looking at families with 5 or more, maybe that cap goes to 375 as a potential. Because we are not, with this particular program, accepting any county or state or federal dollars for housing, we, since it's basically a private self-sustaining fund, we can set the parameters wherever you believe it's appropriate for the community in order to do the intent of the program. And we did not write it into an ordinance, so it can be as a direction from the council to the administration and legal to change the parameters of the caps. It's up to you all on that discussion of where you want to go on it.
I have a question regarding this. And from the time that we adopted this until now, the cost of the entry level cost from the developer, how much has that increase been since the day we adopted?
I think it's been about 10 or 15%. I'm not exactly sure. I don't have that number exact.
So that, I think that has to be figured into this, because our intentions were that a first-time home buyer or income level or the side of the home was based upon at the time when we originally adopted this. And so if there's been a 10% increase, I mean, should we consider a 10% increase in the bottom line? That's I'm just going to throw that out there, because that's a factor in what the cost is now on the home.
Just a quick point of not order but information. Keep in mind we're about to approve townhouses. So that's really going to drastically change the field of homes that would qualify. Correct. I still would love to see that data of how close people were that just missed it by 5,000, 10,000.
We've been tracking that. Ephraim, as he tracks the ones we've awarded and stuff into SEC, he doesn't have a track on how many were just over. Most of them were around 352, 356, 357, some at 360 on the past history. Now that is prior to some of the increases. And yes, some of the back-to-backs are higher, things like, or not back-to-backs, but lakefronts versus lot premiums. And that varies depending on the builder. So,
do we have any idea yet what the price range of the townhomes are? And how many bedrooms and that kind of stuff?
I'll refer that. Mr. Herring, are you still on? Or Tara?
I'm still on. This is Tara Dewey, Lewis, Longman & Walker. Unfortunately, I am the wrong person to ask that particular question, but I will certainly get you all an answer to that when I meet with Mr. Carter or Mr. Herring next, so we can answer that question for you.
Yeah, if you can shoot that over so I can get that out to the council.
Surely.
So a couple of my concerns, and I did email Ken back, so I'm waiting on you to give me that document. I would like to look at Palm Beach County's BPA program first. I think we all need to kind of do our own research and homework. We have $3 million in that account. And the reality of it is, what we have is not working. And so while I think staff is doing a dynamic job, I do think we need to have conversations. And Ken, you made a very good point. It is our program, so we can make it how we want to make it. And I think we need to re-image this program as well as create the others that we did talk about. But for full transparency, what we have now is just not working. And so we need to really look at what the county is doing, not necessarily tailor it to Westlake, but we need to look and see at some other things. I have had conversations, so it's a rigorous program. And so we need to look at it again. Like I said, I'll get some more information, but I think even if we have to have a workshop, I think that may help. Where you guys come back with the numbers that council is asking for and a couple of criteria or programs that you come in there, we identify it that way. So if it may look like you come back to us with 6 different programs and we adopt 2 to 3 of them. But I think this is something that we really need to take our time on and look at. And I would like for staff to really bring other people in so we can look at what's going on with that.
Unless there's been a significant change on the financial report, December 31st, we're showing $1,718,500 in the account.
That's right. From the last time, then it was probably changed. Okay.
We're probably close to that. I think we just did 2 awards.
Yeah, 220K awards.
Yeah, two that just went out, so just like 40K went out, but basically it's about 1.6, 1.7. Okay.
In the,
and that was my comments a couple months ago. It's like I've got this fund that we're not really accomplishing the tasks we set forth. Right.
In the spirit of this conversation, I really want to recognize Mr. Aldenia.
Yeah.
This is I tried. This is exactly, the point of he was trying to make, and I'm glad it's a conversation. Thank you.
And even expand at this point, I mean, if we're innovative, we're innovative. Even if we were to expand at this point with your medical worker, because I mean, we can do all the things.
The program, our program is basically a need-based, and that's what it's set at, is a need-based. It's not set for any specific people. The various builders, Mento has their discounts.
So does Skyco.
Skyco does different discounts for various professions. That's their ballpark. Ours is where that threshold is. We set a threshold. Matter of fact, Equin's working with one individual right now that they're definitely need-based, et cetera, but when they put the basic house together with a lot, he's at what, 360?
367.
367.
That's with no upgrades. That's your basic 3.2, 0 upgrades is 367.
But here again,
and the program the maximum home price is purchase price for the program is 350. Right. So we can't qualify. I qualified 4 people since October.
So let me ask you, to give some immediate relief to some of these people who really need it, could we do council direction to just bump it to 367 in the short term?
Yes.
And then we really come back and workshop it and decide what we're really going to do. But at least in the meantime, we can get all these people approved who really need the help.
I have 6 in the hole. If you go to that amount, I got them.
Anybody opposed? That's just a regular direction, that bumping it to 367.
Can we do that?
The council can do that. That was a policy. We adopted the guidelines. That specific dollar amount wasn't in there to allow for flexibility to do the annual adjustments. That 350 was still well above anything in the county. The county's price is now approaching at 350, but it still does not exceed 350.
So you want to make a motion on that?
Does it have to be a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, there needs to be a motion for that change at this point.
I'd like to make a motion that we bump the cap to 367 for our happy program.
You got a first and a second.
Is that, when we vote on this, this is a temporary thing or just a permanent thing? What?
It becomes permanent, but we're still going to come back and workshop it and do even better.
This is in place until you guys change it.
So we'll change it again, if so. We got a first and second on the floor.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilman O'Connor, seconded by Vice Mayor Long Robinson. Roll call. Councilman O'Connor?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Long Robinson?
Yes.
Mayor Manning?
Yes.
Councilman Paul?
Yes.
Councilwoman Crump?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Okay.
Yay. Great.
Try to get through the next ones a little quicker. We have had a lot of comment or questions and inquiries from individuals regarding leasing space in Publix. We did get the name of the Publix leasing person because the city does not have any impact on who they lease to or what the leasing rates are, et cetera. So we do have that contact information. Planning and Zoning Department has it. If somebody calls, we'll just direct them to there in order for Publix to continue to lease. The Indian Trail SID mediation lawsuit went to mediation, as you all know, last Wednesday. Mediation went to impasse, so it continues to go forward to court. That's the next stop. And as it gets better down the road, city may or may not be more involved in it, in the process. As a comment for the Florida Public Utilities, I already commented on that. The culvert project on Seminole Pratt Whitney, finally today, this morning, SID got the permits approved from the county. So that work can commence pretty quick. They have to do some boring and some FPL work first, but at least they can start. The other thing is, as I stated in the weekly report to the council, out of all 39 communities, we issued 377 single-family building permits last year. That's with a staff that I sent them an email later that I am extremely thankful working with. We have such a professional staff that makes things happen and gets the stuff done. They get it. We basically issued almost 23% of all single-family residents in the county. I mean, it is insane. And again, Pod S is coming fast. Townhomes are coming. So school board, I would suspect that the school may be a lot sooner than the 2027 date based upon the velocity that we have going right now. And I just want to thank everybody that's been there. That's all I have. I'm sorry.
We didn't have one report. All right, one last time and I'll be done. We left out the District 15 substation and the 17 substation, by the way. Sheriff's Office substation. Yeah,
we keep pushing it. Safety
issue in the area, just for you and your residents. Shouldn't affect the city of Westlake, but it's happening throughout the acreage. There's people that are running around in camouflage with some long BB guns. They're iguana hunters. They certify or they register through FWC to come out here and take care of the invasive species of iguana that are out here. So we've been getting a couple phone calls lately. Hey, we saw one or two people. Looks like they're running along in the bushes over here or along a canal here. They are registered. They're doing it through FWC. So you might see that or get a phone call from any of the residents that they might see that as they're traveling to or from Westlake. They shouldn't be in Westlake. I'd be surprised if they are. But That's what it is. They're actually out here trying to take down some of the invasive species, as you've seen with the iguanas. They're crazy here. And, when it got cold, they all fell out of the trees and hit people and stuff. So that's what it is. All right, so it is not really a cause for concern. If there are issues with the specific person, call us. We will take care of it. They are given direction on how to safely do it, not aim towards houses and not aim towards, they're supposed to shoot them in the trees or down canal banks or in directions that aren't going to, if they miss, they take out somebody's window or something like that. So there shouldn't be issues. But if there are, call us and we will definitely take care of it. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Maybe we can get something on the city website. Say, hey, look out for iguana hunters. Just in case. Heads up.
Point out the iguanas where they are. Will do.
Okay, we'll move on to final item, public comment on agenda items only. This section of the agenda allows for comments from the public to speak on items only presented on the agenda. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes to comment. The public comment card should be completed and returned to the city clerk.
Mayor, there were no previous comment cards received for this section of the agenda. However, if there are any participants in the virtual audience that wish to make a comment, please raise your virtual hand, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Are there any participants who wish to make a comment? If you're unable to unmute your device, please raise your virtual hand. Mayor, I see no virtual hands.
Good, time's up. Thank you, everyone. We're going to adjourn the meeting at 8:21. Thank you. Have a good evening, all.
Everyone for their leadership.
Thank you.
Hey. Good.